wouldn't show this on the television.
Eventually. Now we have to make sure it's going. Okay.
Is it going?
It's going, and it looks good. Okay, now.
Is it going?
Yes, it's going. So, ask questions. Be an interviewer.
It's got to be sort of spontaneous, hasn't it?
Right.
You know, you can't think when you start asked to think, you can't.
Right. Well.
Well, we went over to Millwall today,
Yeah.
and it was all changed, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Tell us what it was like in Millwall when you were.
I can't quite
First
remember. Dreary,
Well,
same as it is now.
well, really, it was all on the, I should say, it was on the grid system, all the roads, more or less.
Yes, you had
On the
one
grid.
main road and then
But now,
turnings going off it. Each side, you know, like this.
where some of the roads are closed and built on, there's no roads there.
That's right.
It's a bit cleaner than Peckham, though, isn't it?
Well, I was a bit messy. We thought it was a
Certain
bit messy.
parts
Well.
of Peckham.
And the mud chute, was quite surprised to see all those animals on there. That's
Charlie used to say that he used to play on the mud chute.
Oh, yes, yes,
It is, yeah. Well, it was
They
private.
used to play football on it.
Yeah. Uncle Boo used to play football on there.
And Charlie used to go up there, I think.
But now, you see, that was all one big open green land or grassland.
Yeah.
Wild, it was wild,
But
wasn't it?
now, no, not really. But now they've kind of built it up like when we walked up that path
Right.
right onto the mud chute. But before, if you wanted to get to the top, you had to climb.
I
Climb to the top
I-
of the
What
mud
about
chute.
the skills? They were all greengrocers, weren't they?
oh, yes,
Yeah, they were all. My grandfather was a greengrocer, and his Uncle Albert was a greengrocer, Uncle Jim was a greengrocer, and his sons were greengrocers.
Well,
But
my grandfather was that Elvis grandfather's school. Did I meet him?
No,
No.
I don't think it did.
No, I
Yeah,
don't.
they lived over somewhere with Uncle Bill Stubbs over in Horn Church, was it?
No.
No, he didn't. He died before they went down there.
He retired out of business. He had a greengrocer shop on the corner of Stabenhouse Street, which is no more now. That's the road we were in, but we couldn't get out, could we? And he sold up his business and retired, and he moved down to a place called Neverden in Essex, which meets up with Basildon, which is now a big town. Basildon's a big town.
Mhm.
I expect Neverden is part of Neverden's taken into the big town.
Well, he was your grandfather, wasn't he?
That's my grandfather,
Yes,
yeah.
Bill and Jenny went to Horn Church, didn't they?
Yes,
Yeah, that's right. I remember going to Horn Church.
they went to Horn Church, yeah.
We might have taken you to Jenny's when you were younger.
And I remember Great Granny Skills was at Horn Church.
No. No, they never moved in, they never lived at Horn Church, they lived in Cecil Street.
Oh.
On the island, they finished up in Cecil Street, they bought a house in Cecil
And where did the
Street.
Skills come from?
The Skillses came from Poplar and Limehouse.
Originally.
See, some of his relations, I don't know what relations they were to him, but some of them were fishmongers in what they called Pennyfields.
Yeah.
We passed Pennyfields
Chinatown.
when we made our way down to the island in West Ferry Road. We shot off down West Ferry Road to get round the island, right?
Yeah.
And Pennyfields is down that area.
That's where they used to have the pack of poo up there. They used to all go and put their bets on, didn't
Yeah,
they?
they used to call that
They
China.
stopped it at the finish.
Yeah, they called that Chinatown because all the Chinamen used to come out the
It
docks
was a game
off
they
the
used
boat.
to have.
Oh.
Called pack of poo. And everybody used to go up there and put bets on for
So
something.
how did they play that?
Lord knows.
Well, by a card, they had a card, you see, with
It's a Chinese game anyway.
numbers on,
Like something like bingo.
simply yes, to that, but
Well, it ruined
it
a lot of people.
because
They
we were
used to
running,
spend all their wages
Oh,
on it.
really?
They stopped it at the finish, I think, didn't they?
I don't know, well, it
Oh,
died out, there's no
What was
China.
that? The 1920s, was that?
Yeah, that was, and before 30s or 40s, I expect.
Yes,
Yeah.
we were in our 20s.
What do they call Puckapoo?
Puckapoo,
It's
yeah.
called Peckham.
There's a card game, there's another game, I can't think the name of the other game.
I've heard of it now.
They used to play another game, but I can't think of it.
And they used to send the children up with the slips. They're the
But
people.
you remember where great-grandfather Skills, remember where his father came from?
No. We never knew those parents. Never knew his parents, really. But grandmother Skills, I can't quite think of her name now, but in 1930, Dick was born in 1932, right? Dick was born in 1932, and she had a relation.
He was born in 1930.
Dick was born in 1930.
Well, in 1930, they came over to visit Grandma Skills, right? One came from, that was her relations, they moved to America. When, I don't know. They came over in the 1930s
Oh, yes.
to visit.
Reuben and...
Yeah, and a couple came from Chicago, but I don't know where the others came from.
And another tall
And
one.
one of the women,
Lizzie.
she weighed 21 stone.
Oh, she was enormous.
21 stone, that's 210 plus
tall.
84,
She was very tall.
294 pounds.
294 pounds.
Pretty big.
And they wanted to buy these,
Oh, yes, something they were
what they call them,
for, weren't they?
lusters. Is it lusters? Was it lusters?
Oh, they were looking for lusters,
Lusters.
the old-fashioned lusters.
You can explain what a luster is.
Well, it used to be under a glass case. We used to have one.
Yeah.
Red glass, like a big red glass egg cup on a wooden stand with a glass shade over it.
Yeah, but what was the luster? What was the luster now?
Well-
Was it a flat plant?
No, the glass, I think. It was a beautiful red glass with flowers engraved in it. It was a lovely thing, the one we had. I don't know what happened to it.
And they evidently bought some,
It
and
was old-fashioned. They were very old. Belonged to Mum's mother, or that kind of stuff. She had nice little, but what happened to it? Because when Lil's place was bombed, Lil had most of it.
Uh-huh.
And you
that's
see,
her sister,
a lot of it,
mum's sister.
and a lot of it got lost. A lot of all this stuff was lost in the
In the line.
bombing, you see.
And anyway, when they got these lusters packed and away on their way, I'm not sure it was when they arrived the other side, they all got smashed. They lost all their lusters, got broken.
Yeah, they were very delicate. The glass was fragile looking. They were beautiful red. The one we had was a beautiful red.
Where did all the Drapers come from then?
Hackney.
I couldn't tell you, North London somewhere.
You lived at Hackney, didn't you?
Yes, both of them.
They were, oh, you don't know where your grandfather came from?
No, I remember my father's father used to always go around with books. There was a load of books, but that was all we ever saw of them. Never knew much of him at all. The Mum's people had died before we were born, I think. Never knew them.
No?
I never knew my dad's people.
No?
Only
Just knew Dad's brothers.
knew his brothers and sisters, but I never knew his parents. And they came from Wales.
Yeah.
Do you know
North
where in
Wales.
Wales?
No, all I know is North Wales, but couldn't say.
You don't know what did the Drapers do?
What did the Drapers do for a living?
Your dad worked in the docks, didn't he?
He worked in the docks. His brother worked in a cocoa factory.
Ah.
His other brother used to decorate the houses, because he used to decorate the one where we lived.
But he used to tell all these stories, didn't he, about how he caught tigers and everything?
Oh, that was Mum's dad.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. He'd make them up. When I was out in South Africa, he'd put his hands through it inside its mouth and pulled it inside out through its tail.
Yeah.
The kind of tales he used to tell us when we used to believe them. Oh, he could tell a good yarn.
He used to sing a bit, didn't he?
The three of them did, the three brothers. They had quite good voices. They used to sing in clubs.
didn't they?
Yes, the three of them, when they were younger.
Wasn't there a photograph once? I might have seen.
You might have seen it, Lily's up, David.
With all concertinas they had or something.
Oh, Father always had a concertina or a piano accordion.
Yeah.
Because he was in the army for a little while during the First War, and when he went away, he used to pawn it, leave it there. And when he used to come home on leave, he used to go and get it out, and he'd play it in the pawn shop and get all the old years dancing. And they used to throw him out. No, he could play it.
Mm.
And they could all sing too, three of them.
Do you remember what they used to sing?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what they used to sing?
Don't Go Down in the Mine, Dad, and all those kind of songs.
Sing the vacant chair.
I used to sing the vacant chair because when we used to see him getting ready to sing it, we used to all disappear because he dragged one of us over to stand by the side of him so as he could put his hand on your head when he said, "I have one joy, that's my baby boy." He used to like to have one of us beside him, and without him the world would seem bare. So when he was getting ready to sing that, we all disappeared.
I found the words to that, didn't I? I found the words and music to that song.
Yeah.
Oh,
I found
I
the whole
think I
sheet.
still know the
Yeah.
words a bit.
Oh yeah?
The tune,
Yeah,
yes.
there we go.
Vaguely. I know it ended, "I have one joy, that's my baby boy. Without him the world seems bare. That's left of my wife, and the joy of my life, and that's left on the empty chair."
Vacant chair.
The vacant chair, something like that.
Mm.
Oh, he was a lad for that song. I
Yeah.
forget what the others used to sing, Uncle Bill and Uncle Bob.
Oh, do you remember where your mother came from?
She came from North London somewhere, I don't know really much about her at all. You know, they were all in the machine trade. You know, she was quite a good machinist. I think they were all in that trade.
You don't remember what her parents did?
Stop it.
No, they were just,
Stop it. Get down.
I think they were sort of very strict people, her parents. Saw a photograph of her once, and
Stop it. Get down. Get down.
very
Right, her parents?
Mum's parents, yes,
Yeah.
but Mum was smaller, like I am.
Oh yeah?
Mm.
Yeah. She wasn't very old when she died, right?
48.
48.
She died on her 48th birthday. Dad was only 50. He died 2 years, a year after.
Mm.
And how did they die?
Hmm?
How did they die?
What was their complaint?
Well, more or less, Dad, I think, was more or less cancer, and Mum's was TB. She was in hospital for months. She was ill for months, Mum was. So we looked after her a lot of times, because we had to go out to work until 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, come home and do all the housework and the washing.
And you were quite young at that time.
Lil and I were in about 20 when Mum and Dad died. So we had the 3 younger ones to bring up.
But before,
Arthur was the youngest?
Eh?
Arthur
was the
And how old
youngest.
was he then?
He was about,
Oh, he was under 14.
he was much younger than that. He was only about 10ish, I think. He wasn't very old.
Yeah, he was well under 14.
Well, he was still a baby.
well, there were 7 of you, not 5, wasn't there?
7,
There
yeah.
were 7 of us all together, yes.
Because he was a brute to get to bed, wasn't he, Arthur? Arthur was.
Arthur, yes.
Oh, dear.
We'd lay on the floor and go to
Yeah.
sleep,
But you wouldn't go to bed.
and we'd get him up to undress him, put him to bed. No. He was
Yeah.
quiet, but he's very stubborn. He still is, isn't he? He's very quiet, but he's...
Uncle Charlie was a pretty good singer, wasn't he?
Uncle Charlie was good company. He used to always And so did Ernie, though, has got a party going when we used to have, all used to collect up Blackheath in that room at Blackheath there. Used to be Charlie and Ernie that used to get the party going. Well, we all used to get together then, we don't now.
Well,
Everyone's drifted more or less apart, but
everybody's got old now, haven't they?
Well, now we-
They were all young then.
everybody's moved away, you see, but when we were younger, you all used to live more or less in the same district.
But you all lived on, Uncle Bob lived on Millwall, right?
Uncle Bob lived
Yeah.
on Millwall.
In
Yes,
Manchester
so did
Road.
Dad, so did we.
And so,
And him and Uncle Charlie were great friends.
Yes,
They used to belong to the
that's
Docklands.
how Ada met Bob.
Yes, and I don't know really how she met Bob, but
Yes, she was with
it-
Mel.
Oh, she was with
Mel,
yeah,
yes.
with Nellie, Adrian and my sister Ada and
Nellie-
little
Nellie
sister
was
Nellie. They used to be friends and go out together. And that's how I expect how Ada
And they used to meet Bob and Charlie over at Greenwich, and that's how Ada. And she
That's
stayed with Bob.
And
Because he
Charlie
used
is
to
your
be-
brother?
Yeah,
Bob used to be a chauffeur
he
too.
died when he was 17.
I say Bob used to be a chauffeur to a doctor on the island. Oh, Dr. Malay.
Yeah.
He used to drive a hansom, didn't he?
And he was one of the first to have a car. Bob.
Yes, he used to.
Well, not Bob,
Bob used
Yeah.
to drive on
Okay.
Malay.
he was one of the first to have a car.
Yes.
he had a Bugatti, didn't he?
Yeah, you got it,
He always more or less
No
had a
doors,
car,
you
one
just jump
way.
in it.
Yeah.
No doors on the side. You just
Well, he
jump
was
in.
always, he was a good driver, wasn't he? He always used to drive to Dr. Malay.
Or was he your local doctor?
The other doctors used to walk.
Yeah.
on
Oh, he
the
used to have,
roads.
yeah, he used to, one of them used to have
Malay was
a
there,
cab.
wonder.
You know, remember the Hanson cabs?
Yeah.
With the two wheels,
The driver sat at the back of the cab.
yeah, outside at
The
the back.
horse was in front.
And the cab was covered in like that, you see, like a box. And the driver would be up the back, driving the
Well,
bus.
you sat here more or less. The driver was in a seat high up at the back, and the horse was in front.
And eventually he bought a car and Bob
Bob
drove it.
drove it, didn't he?
But he was very obstinate, everything. He told you, we've heard the tale from him over and over again, you know. He's young like.
Oh, yes.
He would, you know, he was so independent and stubborn that you only got to say something to him and he'd leave Peckham and all that. Even when he took the doctor's wife out once up the West End somewhere or other, she was there so long.
Well, she was an old tartar, wasn't
He was
she?
there so long, he left her behind and fetched the car home. Without her.
Well, she was a bit of an old tartar, old Malay's wife.
How so? How so?
Well, we don't really know. I never knew her all that much, but
Well, by the way, what we've heard Bob say, you know,
yeah, I think it's partly to Bob's obstinate.
well, you can't
Being obstinate, you see, really. She was the governor, but Bob wanted to be the governor, I expect, so he kind of did what he wanted to do.
I think she used to want to give him his orders and that, and Bob didn't like.
Did Uncle Dave also come from the Isle of Dogs?
No, he came from Greenwich.
He came from East Greenwich.
We passed by
Across the road, right?
Old Woodland Road, by the church,
Yeah.
the Christ Church.
Yeah.
We passed where Rosie lived. He lived in the same turning Rosie lived, where I showed you Old Woodland Road.
Mm. What about Uncle Alf, who married Aunt Edie? Did he come from the Isle of Dogs?
He came from
He
Greenwich.
came from Greenwich.
From Greenwich.
Mm.
He was a sailor, wasn't he?
Yeah,
He was in the army right from a boy of 15,
Sailor, Navy, wasn't
in the Navy, yes. Oh, he was a lovely
Then
boy.
he was
chap.
discharged from the Navy, wasn't he? And he worked up the,
Well, he served his time, I
Yes,
think. He
that's
was
what I
in his 30s, I think.
yeah, well, he was discharged. And he worked up the
Arsenal, is it?
Arsenal,
Yeah,
in Woolwich. So my dad at the finish, he worked up there and it was tremendous they raided that place. It was tremendous evidently.
Listen, I think it was shot.
And it killed both of them. The shot killed both of them.
Because Alf
They
went,
both died, you know, owing to the
Alf
shot.
went into a decline and he was a lovely big.
Yeah, I don't understand what you mean they raided it.
When the war was on,
Mm-hmm.
the airplanes, German airplanes came over and bombed London.
Bombed it.
Yeah.
They bombed the arsenal.
And they bombed the arsenal. I don't know how much damage they did. And it was so frightening that
And they all.
it more or less ended both their lives.
Whose lives was that?
That was
Alf, Edie's husband, he's more or less went in, he developed TB and he was quite healthy because he's, you know, coming out of the Navy, was quite healthy. And he sort of went into a decline and was in hospital for months. And Pat was only a baby when he died.
that was the end of my dad as well, I think.
Yes, it was same with him, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were both working there together. Well, not together, but at the same time.
Oh, I think they had a terrible time.
Yeah. Well, he was not very young then. Uncle Alf must have been in his 30s.
Uncle Alf was good older than he was in his 30s.
Yeah, I sort of vaguely remember him. He was a very good looking fellow, wasn't he?
Oh, he was a lovely, lovely looking man. Lovely, upright, you know, built, very dark.
This is
That's Pat's father.
this here. Aunt Edie gave two to Mum, two to Nellie, was it, or something? And have you seen these before? They came from
Hong Kong, China, somewhere.
yes,
Uncle Alf brought them home somewhere,
not Hong Kong, the other place. What is it now?
one of the places.
Taiwan or
No. Well, no.
I
Singapore.
think it was Hong Kong.
Singapore.
He
Yeah.
brought them home and she gave us two each, didn't she?
Yeah. They're all hand painted, eh?
Yeah.
They're lovely.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask Louise if she'd like that one we've got. We never use it and I've got nowhere to put it.
Yes, if you could get it home.
Is that Nippon?
Not that one.
No, not the
Well, my uncle brought back from Singapore years ago when he was in the Navy.
Edie's husband bought half a dozen of them, she gave us two each.
But it's not Nippon, or else it's saying.
They're not things you use, really. I haven't never had a cabinet to keep them.
And that's
Where you going, Mum?
Sit down.
I don't think you opened the door because
No,
the
no,
other chair
no.
yeah, something like that. Yeah, so that's, yeah.
Forget it. Get them out afterwards.
No, they're hand painted. The tailor gave those to us, that tea service, who made our wedding gear. He made all the men's clothes and ours, and his wife made ours,
Yeah.
women's.
And the tailor gave you a present?
And he gave us that.
Well, we were great customers with the tailor.
Well,
when we
most-
married. Everybody had their
We
suits all
used to have our
dressed in
suits
place,
made there,
yeah. That was in Charlton.
both of us,
Greenberg.
men
his
and
name was,
women.
But he went in the line of green.
Yes. No, he used to make a lovely suit, men and women. We used to all have them all tailor-made, didn't we?
Oh yeah,
Suits.
when we were rich.
No,
Is your dad?
well, I had one and it was still good when I got rid of it. I don't think it would ever worn out.
Mum, do you remember any of your aunts and
Oh, my young sister, Rose, she was always in service. And she had another one and she was a bit of a card.
Oh, but they,
Aunt Min, she was the lad of the
yeah.
four of them.
But Aunt Meat,
Oh, she lived at Essex.
Aunt Meat lived in Benfleet.
Oh yeah.
No,
Benfleet in Essex.
Stamford Lee Hope.
Stamford Oak, sorry.
Who was in service?
Who was in service?
Aunt Rose. She was
Oh,
always
was
in
she?
service.
Oh, was she?
Yes, right from when she was a girl.
Oh, I never knew that. Because he was a painter.
Charlie's mum was in service.
In
Charlie.
she was always in domestic service.
Charlie's mum was at was in some foundling home who just put it into service, you know, almost like slave labour. Yeah. Almost like Charlie O'Hagan.
Because she was the one that always used to come down when Mum needed help.
Yeah.
She always turned up, doesn't matter what. Because she never had any children of her own. And she used to have one of us over there now and again.
What do you do for a Saturday night out in the Isle of Dogs?
Well, we used to go
We used to go for a walk. We used to go to Barnard's at Greenwich, Picture Palace.
we used to go.
That's where I met Dad at Greenwich. We met them in London Street.
No, you know, we met up in the, when the fair was on up in Blackheath.
Did we?
Fred
Fred
Clark
Clark and May
and I, and yeah,
Apple.
we met there. And then we used to go to Poplar Hippodrome. That was a theatre.
Or else we used to go to Greenwich.
Or go to
There's
Greenwich.
nothing on the
Used to go what they called Monkey's Walk.
Monkey Parade.
Monkey Parade. All of
London.
they used to always
You just
walk up and down like that in Monkey Parade.
The girls
Pick up who
parade
you
with
could.
the girls and the boys
Yes.
and the boys, and then when you met.
Yes.
That's it, yeah. So pick up who you could, like, you know, and have evening out. And we used to always finish up in Torres.
Then we met these, and that's where we
Finished up in Torres and the steak and ship lunch and all that.
ate the chips. Oh, we used to have some lovely suppers there for about 1 and 6, wasn't it?
Yeah. Which is not there anymore.
Better than we did today, isn't it?
Every night, yes.
Yeah. Always have some.
Oh, we always used to finish up in there, didn't we?
About when was that you first met?
Well, when
Before we were married.
before we were married, yes. We couldn't afford it when we were married.
No, I mean, when did you first meet?
Well, we met.
I was about 26.
Yeah, I was.
Dad was about 3 years younger.
No, we courted 5 years.
I was.
We
no,
courted
no,
5 years.
I was 26 when I was married.
That's right. So I was
I
about
was 21.
18 or 19 when I met Mum, and she was a couple of years older than me.
Didn't know you was young as that.
So she must have been about
Very
20. Or you was about 19 or 20, and I was
I'm
about
about
18
2
or
and a half
19.
years older than you. I was about getting on for 21.
You're not supposed to move.
Oh, sorry.
You can move.
Oh.
It just come back when you're
Oh,
done. You
so
can
you
move
come back.
around.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah. I always said I was gonna, I forgot what I was gonna.
Well, let's continue.
Oh, the old,
I love the old.
I was thinking that if you remember any of the old music hall stars, if you ever saw any of those old music hall stars.
Stan Leno.
Dan
Dan
You
Leno.
saw Dan Leno?
Dan
Yeah,
Leno.
you see Dan Leno.
Oh, I can't really remember them. I can't really remember the songs now. And now and again, when you're not thinking, you can remember them.
And
But
what?
Was Dan Leno very funny?
Oh yes, oh he was. Yeah, very funny.
well, he was considered so. But because when you find him,
Well, he was funny to us then, wasn't he? You see, it may not be so funny now. We wouldn't take, you know, those days. in
different
that
type,
time,
different type
we
of
wouldn't
humour.
entertain it today, would we? Because the funny
The simple humour used to satisfy people, but now people
And,
expect something.
Who used to sing Yiddish your mummy?
Oh,
Big fan.
That was Izzy Barn.
Izzy Bond.
Yeah, but he was later.
Izzy
He
wasn't
was later, yeah.
is he gone? Yeah.
That's a few years now.
he? Yeah, I know, I'm talking about those,
Well,
1920s.
yeah, well,
No, it's been
I
free.
don't know if we saw Mara Lloyd or not now.
Yes, we used to see it at the Queen's.
And we saw who died, the great, she became a great favourite.
It was Fred Barnes. He
Mr.
was
Tilly.
younger than me.
No, she
Right.
moved to Capri, doesn't she?
Oh, Gracie Field.
Oh,
Gracie
Gracie
Fields,
Fields,
yeah.
yes.
Well, that's a few years.
Mm.
We saw that Mr. Tower of London. That was first show down in London. And Archie Pitt, he was in it, they married at the
They married, didn't they?
Archie Pitt.
Gracie Fields and
Gracie Fields, yeah. That was at Poplar Hippodrome in Poplar High Street.
Mm. Yeah, I was thinking of the old,
Oh, there was a
Well,
turn of the century
yes, there was a.
people,
yeah, well, I forget them now.
Harry Champion and,
Now Edie would remember them, or
yeah,
Can't think of,
Little Titch. I remember Aunt Lily told me she saw Little Titch.
yeah.
now she was the one that would
Yeah.
remember all those things.
I
So
can't.
would Charlie, but
Yeah, I can't
I
think
used
of
to,
them.
but they've gone clean out of mine now.
So,
Because we never, You never sort of discussed this
I always remember I went on the,
for long, for ages.
I went on the stage of Pop Ripodrome. They were showing you how films were taken. They wanted quite a lot of people to get up onto the stage and take partners and dance. And I was dragged up there. I was only about 14.
Did you used to dance?
No. You know, doing it on the stage. No.
You didn't go out dancing?
No, never danced.
No, I used to until I went with Dad and then never.
I wish I had now.
We used to go dance together.
Did you do the Charleston and things like that? You went out with your girlfriend?
Yes.
So, you say you courted for 5 years?
5 years before that.
Sis and Bill were courting longer than that.
Oh yes, my brother Bill. They must have been courting for about 10 years.
Well, see, in those days, we used to wait until we saved enough money to be able to afford to get married so as we could buy what we wanted.
So you can be poor the rest of your life.
Yeah, and we had a reasonable wedding, and we spent all our money on what we wanted.
We spent every penny we had.
Well, it was not much more than £100.
Well, it went a long way then.
Fair amount. And I put out a big frost. Soon after we settled down and get
We
married.
were married on Christmas Day above all.
We had a big frost. So I was out of work for about 6 weeks.
Oh, because you couldn't do plastering when it was freezing?
No,
those days.
they never used to get any money at all.
Because we've got no money.
Then.
No labour.
No dole.
No dole then.
You just managed
And
best.
I was running a club, a Christmas
Loan
club.
club. We
So I had to borrow it out of Christmas
We
club.
borrowed all that and paid it back after. Well, she weren't paid anything, not when, not like they are now.
Right.
Oh, Lily never got married.
Lily never got married, no.
No.
She did court a chap, but
She did go out with one, but she wasn't, I think when they touched her,
Yeah, she was very attractive, wasn't she? She was old.
she was nicely built too, she was attractive, Lily.
When you say people courted for that long, when did you decide that you thought you were going to get married? I mean, did you actually say we are engaged, or?
oh yes, I don't know how long we were engaged.
I had a nice engagement ring, I lost it
Lost that down the drain,
soon
didn't you?
after I was married.
Yeah, I don't know how long we were engaged, but we got engaged first, and all of a sudden we
We were engaged
decided
quite a while.
to get married.
Well, is it your uncle Reuben? Was that your uncle or your cousin?
Uncle.
Uncle Reuben. He was killed in the First World War, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was killed in the First World War, yeah. Yeah.
So you had Reuben Skills. Now, who was Isaac Skills?
No, I said, not to my knowledge. Zelbert.
Elvis Skills.
Elbert. He just died. As in Australia.
Yeah.
And there was William. He worked in the docks at one. And then there was Jim.
He was
He was in the greengrocery.
We had the greengrocer.
And then the women in the band, there was Mum, my Mum Ada. And the next one was, what's her name, Billy's?
May, she had a
Yeah, May was the next, and then
she
was,
had a hairdresser, she was the best lot.
and there was then there was Lizzie, and there's Jenny. And Jenny
in
is the
Australia.
last one left, and she's an Australian, and she's about 86 now. She's the last one left out of the family.
So she was close, not much older than you, though she was your aunt.
No, because we used to be very good friends.
And
Your Uncle Albert was only about a year older than you.
or about 2 or 3 left in the day with
There
all
were
of
granny
them.
skills,
But there was
when her
another,
children, when
there
her
was another child, bald,
when her children were
named
she
Richard,
was
who
17.
would have been about my age. But he
Yeah,
died
17,
in the
That's-
infancy.
Grandmother had 17 children.
Your grandmother had 17 children?
Yeah,
Yeah, she was still having them when her children were.
That was Granny Skills?
yeah, 17 children. But only 7 were alive at the finish. She lost 10 altogether.
She lost-
And
she
Jenny,
lost 11.
Jenny was one of twins.
Well, your mother had 9, didn't she, altogether?
Altogether, I think, yes.
And 2 of those died.
Yes, the two eldest ones, there were 2 girls older than Millie.
Oh, yeah?
There would have been
And how old were they when they died? Like,
babies.
oh, as babies.
They died in infancy.
Yes.
Oh, that's the boy as well, next to Charlie.
Oh, so there's 10.
He was oldest. I think she had 11 altogether. 2 boys died, and girl, they all died in infancy. They used to lose a lot of them in infancy those days. So they
A
had
lot of
nothing,
diseases that they don't have.
they had nothing to, no help with them.
Yeah. Were they born, where were they born? At home?
Mm.
Not in the hospital?
No, 2.
At home?
They used to have a midwife.
Yeah.
And you said your mother had worked as a machinist?
Mm.
Did many women have jobs like that in those days?
Oh yes, yes. The mum used to do it.
Lily, she was a...
Lily was a machinist.
And when you first met, were you both working?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I worked in
Yeah.
a fruit factory, a jam factory in Connaughton's.
We passed that, I think,
Oh, yeah?
today. We saw McConnell.
Yeah. I done, David, yeah, we did pass it.
We got there past it,
We
I don't
passed
know
it,
if it's
we did,
still
but
there.
when we came down Westbury Road into Manchester Road, we passed
I
it.
saw that name because I thought that rings a bell.
Yeah, we
And what did you do there?
used to pack.
Wrap the bottles and label them. The jars of panyan, then they used to make panyan, and they had a label and a cap and a label on top, and they were wrapped round, and they had another label on top of that, and you just buy them in just with the label, without any wrapping at all, but they had loads of labels and wrappings. And we used to have to work, they used to come down on a belt like that, one after the other, and you used to actually,
And what kind of hours did you work?
oh, 8 till 6.
And did you have
You
any
didn't move away,
breaks during the day?
you couldn't move away from the table.
Did you have like a break in the morning?
Oh,
and-
no, just
Just lunch.
lunchtime,
For an hour or how?
lunch midday,
And how long?
Yeah,
were
usually
you
an
in?
hour I think, it was an hour.
Oh.
No, we didn't have morning break. I think they started to bring it out by the time I left. It was starting to come out, I think, about that time. By the time we left work.
And you left when you got
I never
married?
went back after I was married.
I can see why.
How much did you get paid an hour? Or did you get paid by
I
an
got
hour?
25 shillings. Oh, I started with 6 and 6pence.
6 and 6pence.
I worked at a
That's
toy
a week, right?
Yeah.
a week. I worked at a toy factory making little fur rabbits. And they said, well, after a fortnight you'll go piecework. Well, all I was doing was about 2 or 3 a day, and you used to get 2pence, I think. When I went home and said I'm going piecework. But we only got so much. Well, because the trouble was, the older type girls, I was new, the older type girls near when they were cut, they grabbed them and hung on to them. And being down, when you were down the end of the table, you didn't get a look in. You were the new girl. So,
You never got many dolls to do.
Father said to me, he said, well, that's no good to you, you may as well leave that job. So, left and then I went, I think that's when I started at Connaughton's.
Oh, did you? You worked in the plane place, weren't you? You worked with a tarpaulin place. Make all the flags.
The signal flags for the ship.
Oh, Smith's. Yes, made the flags. I was all right there.
The signal flags.
Yeah.
Yes,
What,
Yes.
what was that?
tents and things.
What did you do there?
Cutting. We used to put them all on the table and cut them with an electric machine in the patterns. The
Then Sunday was
foreman
machine
used to draw the patterns out. And we just cut round. Oh,
And
you-
how old were you when you started to work?
14.
And you were the same? when you were?
Well, actually, you see, now, my grandfather was in business, as you know, and I was one of the assistants. But I used to go to school, and we used to have a 2-hour break. And I come home, and I get sent up to docks with a barrel with fruit on to sell. And after near enough 2 hours, Jenny would come up and take over, and I'd run back to school. So all I had was perhaps a sandwich to eat then, midday. And that went on
He
till
believed,
I left
he
school.
believed in cheap labour.
I left school at 13 and a half. Because I thought when the used to get the medical doctor come round, and I had quite a lot of pimples on my back. And I thought that was is it scabies or something?
Scabies,
Something like that, but it wasn't. And they allowed me to leave school at 13 and a half instead of 14, you see, so I left school at 13 and a half. And the old grandfather retired when I was, how old would I be? I suppose I was about 14. But previous to him retiring, I used to go around selling wiggles on a Sunday. Round
You know what
the
it was
streets.
up?
Yeah, the little fish shows.
Yeah, wiggles.
Oh, he
And-
believed,
and-
he
and-
believed in getting his money's worth.
And wallflowers. He used to buy them
Grandfather.
and go around selling wallflowers as well.
What
He
are
used to sell them.
wallflowers?
Wallflowers are what we've got out there.
That got out there. They used
All
to
those
come round
flowers we've
selling
got
them
out
in
there now
bunches
pulling
on
up. They're wallflowers.
Sunday
Got a
afternoon.
tremendous
They used to
scent
come
with
round
them.
selling.
But they're no good for indoors. They don't last any time.
So you'd sell little bunches of those?
Yeah, go around the streets.
And who bought them?
Yeah, grandfather's skills, he used to buy them up the market,
But I mean,
you see.
Who bought them from you?
Oh, we
What
used
sort
Oh,
of people
house
bought them?
people, the people in their houses.
We used to hear them come around and we used to go out and get a bunch for a penny, I suppose.
And then,
We used to buy, Mum used to love them. We used to usually buy a bunch. My mother used to love wallflowers.
And when you sold these, did you call out anything as you went along the
well,
street?
no, not really used to knock at the doors. I may have done, I
Well,
forget
we
now,
used
it's
to
a long
call
time
out.
ago.
They
But,
used to call
we did.
out.
Yeah, I expect we did, don't forget, with the Wiggles as well. And then, because the grandfather, he sold up his business to a Jew, and tells you how sensible animals are. Now, before he sold up, he used to deliver potatoes to coffee shops, you see, perhaps half a ton at a time. 1,000 weight of potatoes they would buy, and that last them fair time. And I got sent up with a pony and cart with 1,000 weight of potatoes. And you know that pony knew if somebody else drove it, you know, an old mug driving it. He knew it wasn't a real Albert. Uncle Albert used to drive mostly, you see. Knew it wasn't Albert driving him. He just trotted along, just did what he liked. And I was so long, Albert came up to meet me because I'd been so long. Because his horse was, he was the governor, the horse.
He's taking his time.
And then when the Jew took the shop over, Albert and I were still there for a little while, you see. So I've got to take this pony and cart up to New Street in Commercial Road. We were in Commercial Road coming home today when we came through Cable Street into Commercial Road.
Yes, he came all around that way.
And I got up there all right, and coming back, because it was all pony and carts then, you see, not hardly any vehicles. And we got into Commercial Road, and this pony just got up like that until he got up to Stepney Station, and he came to all the traffic, all the horses and carts, because it was all clear up to then. And he just stopped like that and took it steady. I was young, my God, I was. The pony was doing it, you know. He was the governor, really. He just did as he liked with me.
Were skills short for anything else? Was skills?
Eh?
I wonder if skills was it like an abbreviated name?
No. don't know, I've never, it's the only time I've heard of it.
No, it's lots of girls as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Used to be a footballer, played for Stoke, Skills, and that's up in the Midlands, so.
only they say
Quite
when
a lot
you
of
get your
children.
names from the trade, your forebears were in. Well, ours was draper. I think they were mostly in the tailoring trade. Mum's, you know.
There's still, I don't know, now, one of my cousins, that's Uncle Jim, he's been dead many years, he had 3 boys, Jimmy,
Mhm.
Billy and Harry, but Billy was always known as Boston. Ever since he was that big, he was called Boston.
Boston Skills.
Boston Skills. Now, whether he's alive or not, I don't know. But
Well, they've all moved off the island,
there's
haven't they?
still about 5 schools. I looked in the phone book some time back, and there's still about 5 schools that are living on the island.
Hmm.
So whether they're related or not, I don't know. I should think they are.
Yeah.
And we've lost the run of all ours.
Well,
Yeah, we don't have to go on. Yeah, I'd like to hear about, what it was like, you know, just after you were married and having children and, you know, bringing them up and the war and all that stuff.
I'm going to tell you more about that.
Well,
I want to hear about the general strike.
General
well,
strike.
I can't remember much about that. It's
Well, I was,
married.
I
They
was,
were all out in the docks. All the docks were out,
I was
all round.
working for Thorne, Arthur Thorne. He was, now this Thorne is the chairman of Millwall Football Club now,
Yeah.
is a descendant from the original 2 Thorne. There was Arthur and Tom that used to be managing director and manager of Millwall Football Club in the early days, more or less when they started. And this Arthur was a relation. There were 3 brothers, but 2 were in the building business. The other one was not in company with them, although he was in the building trade. And Arthur and I worked for a chap that we worked over back inside on some houses there in the general strike, which was 1947, right? Or
27, 1926.
26. We never went on strike. We still worked on, so did a lot more people in the building trade anyway.
Were you in the union at that time? Or you were apprentice?
I wasn't in the union, I don't think, at that time. I forget now.
You
I
still-
may have been, I'm not quite sure, David.
You still an apprentice?
Weren't you?
Well, I think, no, I think I just about came out of that then, to my recollection.
So the building never went on strike then?
Some did, but not all, David. I mean, I've never been on strike in my life.
It was supposed to be a general strike.
Although there's been building strikes, but I've never been on strike.
So, you, after you got married, you lived in the Isle of Dogs.
We lived at Poplar first,
We lived in Poplar, we
back at that Poplar
church
church,
when we were first married.
and
And for some reason or other, we went back to live
Dick.
on.
Dick,
Lightsmith.
was Dick born in Poplar on the island? On the
I
island,
think I
I
still
think.
lived in Poplar when Dick was born. I lived in Glenmore Road when David was born.
But we moved from Poplar to Glenmore Road to your road, where you used to live.
Oh, yes, it wasn't there long, it was
Yeah, what's the name of that road?
Mellish Street.
Well, into Marriott Street, from Marriott
Oh, it
Street,
wasn't there long.
we went, from Marriott Street we went to Glenmore Road.
That's right, we had our own place, our own,
And
we rented our own house there, we were only in a room.
there's not much to say, really. I mean,
No, it's only when you get talking
we
just more or less, when we were all together here the other week, we went right back to with Edie and Arthur, we would, you know,
We lived on-
the things we
I was hardly out of work. I was doing very well at work, but never had a lot of unemployment.
It's not all that.
And we were living fairly comfortable. Well, we had not had any hardships, really.
Well, not really, can't you?
Only the only time was when I said that soon after we got married, we
Right, the trust.
threw it out into the frost. But in regards to,
Because they don't have it now, they use different material.
Hmm.
It doesn't get frozen out now like
Oh.
it used to.
I
The
know,
material's different.
I've been one of the lucky ones, really.
Well, you should have been here last week.
Right.
When Aunt Edie and Uncle Alf were here.
Do you,
Well, I could have called them up.
Yeah,
Still, it's too late now.
do you remember,
I don't know
please?
where.
Well, you were telling me about when David was born, how big he was.
Oh, £8.12. Oh, yes, the sister carted him all around the hospital. She said, look at this lovely thing and look at the mother. I didn't think much of me. Well, I was no bigger than I am now.
What was he like as a baby?
Eh?
Well, he was a good baby.
You can leave the room.
He was a good baby because,
I know he screamed the blue moon.
yeah.
That's why he's a singer
I mean,
now.
when he was a young child, he always asked to go to bed when he was ready for bed.
Oh, he was pretty good that way.
And
But he screamed because he was hungry.
if I ever said anything to David, he'd just say, "No, you're only playing, Dad." He never took me serious, but he took Mum serious. But I was only just playing, he said. If I told him off.
Because Dick was with him, with his nan quite a lot.
Yeah.
More or less.
Ah, sorry.
She spoiled him. They spoiled him. Spoiled him.
How did he happen to, you mean she babysat for him, or she babysat for him?
No, if we used to go over there, we used to go over there a lot.
Mum, yeah, leave it there. Because we lived
If we were a bit late, his mother used to say, put him to bed and leave him there, and she'd bring him back during
Yeah.
the week.
See, we lived over the island. Mum and Dad lived in New Cross. We used to go over and visit and leave
Yes, they used to
the
go
island.
over here.
So this was your mother?
Yeah, she used to stay with Mum, you see. And then she fetched him back.
Well, he was the first grandchild, you see.
Oh.
Yeah, he was made a fuss of.
He was made a fuss of all round, he was spoiled.
No, next time
Dick was?
we'll come and interview Aunt Edie.
Yeah, we'll make you some tea.
Eh?
That's enough.
We were going to ring.
You can leave.
Really? Well, I did ring Arthur and tell him, I told him I'd give him a call.
Yeah.
You know. So whether
Too late now, isn't it?
whether he's been
What time
waiting.
you going now?
Well, we could always do some more tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
No, he may not.
David, could you?
No, you've got
You
to
won't
get
have time tomorrow.
you've got to get ready. And
Well,
There's another time.
Shame, really.
So,
I'm tongue-tied.
Uncle Dave's got a good. Uncle Dave's got
I think this is great.
Uncle Dave's got a wonderful story. Uncle Dave, when at the end, when he was a prisoner of war, and now
Oh,
David, that
yeah,
was when he was
did
unlucky
arrested.
enough to be a prisoner.
When he told her all about that.
But I like hearing about when you were a little boy.
Yes,
and
so
stuff
do
like
I.
that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, we want to hear, we
well,
want to hear this.
you know how clever he is. You've seen all these certificates.
Right. Well, tell us about that. What was it like when he was boxing and stuff?
Well, I don't know, really. David can tell you more about it than I, because we never went and watched him. Only
You
boxing. I've seen him boxing,
Never
but I've never
swimming?
seen him in any other sport.
Not the swimming.
No.
He used to go to the club here around the corner.
Oh, David did, yeah.
everyone belonged to that.
Oh, yes, that was a great place, that was.
They belonged to that as a family. It would only take you in as a family.
What?
The Peckham Health Centre.
Oh yes, that was good.
So,
He doesn't want to make me any tea.
Oh, I'll make the tea.
That was an experiment they would
Yeah.
When you see.
Yeah.
Peckham
And
experiment.
when they finished their experiment, they were happy and satisfied.
Well, they ran out of money, didn't they? They went.
No, but when they found out what they wanted to know, they chose Peckham because it was a mixed.
Yeah, it was between Peckham and Fulham.
They're going to choose between Peckham and Fulham, and because they were mixed, and the people were mixed, you know.
The different
Yeah,
backgrounds.
different types.
Yeah, Fulham and Peckham were both about the same. The two boroughs were about the same, you see.
But we all had a good medical, the whole family, Joy.
Yeah, I didn't. Those guys, Dr. Williams, I didn't.
You learned to swim round there, didn't you?
Yeah, but I don't think he knew much about medicine.
No?
No, he was more of a scientist,
Yeah.
experiment, you know.
Yeah,
just
quite likely. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's when I was the runner-up here. That's, I remember that there was that guy Gus Greenwood.
Oh, yeah.
I remember my teacher.
You got your revenge back afterwards, though.
Well, my teacher thought I'd won that one.
Oh.
I
We had the,
tried to learn round the health centre, but as soon as my face went under the water, I was finished.
I was very scared of water too. Was Dick in any sport?
No, it was.
he played a little bit of rugby.
Oh, he played a bit of rugby, yeah.
Well, he had to.
He did a bit
They
of
had to
cross-country
go into
running.
something
Yeah,
else.
cross country,
He
yeah.
did a bit of cross-country running.
We never
They
did.
had to go for something?
Well, what school
They
he
had
went
to do something,
What school he went to, yeah,
some sport,
some
so,
But he never did as much as
because he
they did.
couldn't do it, not because he always wore glasses,
Mm-hmm.
heavy glasses.
Yeah, it's hard, some sportsmen.
But he always had his nose in a book anyway. He was more of a book type.
I see I've got some more certificates here. Must be some more around here.
Yeah, I think there's David. I saw it somehow.
Maybe I should get my first place ones and framed for me.
Get all of them framed.
No, not when it's a third place.
We hang up Mommy's horse ribbons. And Jessica and I ruined.
Yeah.
Well, Mommy didn't look after them.
Louise was a champion horse rider.
Was he?
Yeah.
You had this huge box of them.
Sports writer.
No,
Rider.
horse rider.
Horse
She used
rider.
to show. And
Oh.
Lovely.
she had all these blue ribbons and then other ribbons too.
Yeah.
The only ones I cared about were my championships.
Well, we never had a
Well,
chance.
we ruined those as well.
Ah,
We never had a chance to go for anything at school. Too many of you. The younger ones did all right, but the old ones never had much of a chance.
Have a nice day. Yeah.
I did, yeah.
Did you meet your friend?
No, I was
Oh, I thought that's what you were doing.
No, I was just doing some last minute.
oh, are they still open?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Oh, good.
I thought you were meeting your friend.
No.
She went up to the store to return something.
All right, got enough room.
Yeah, sure.
No, Saturdays up there.
Yeah.
I never used to,
Where?
All
up the West End.
Oh.
I never used to open Saturdays, those big shops.
They must have.
Well, now it's competition, isn't it? They got to open no sink.
That's right. Cause all the women are working.
Yeah.
I
I
went,
mean, even on the holidays, bank holidays, they keep open now, but they never used to.
Used to be dead up there, up in Oxford Street on a Saturday.
What I wondered about was, the war and the evacuation experience and all of that.
Oh, the war had a lot to
And
do
the
with it.
bombing and so on.
Louise wrote a paper
Yeah.
that, for a course she was doing. And it was about, the books had been written about evacuation.
Right, most of them though were about, people evacuated, either to America or Canada,
Some went there, yes.
and,
They stayed there, a lot of them.
yeah. And then not many were from the point of view of, kids the age of David, they were all
No,
older kids.
That's right,
and-
that's right.
Or even from the parents' point of view. And I'd be interested to hear about,
Well, David was very young when the war broke out.
Yeah, well, they were more or less the better off people that went there, weren't they?
Yeah.
Oh yes, they paid for them.
So, do you remember
David
what,
and Dick were evacuated with the school. They went with the school.
and how much warning did you have that this would happen?
Well, the war?
No,
Oh, they asked
that
you.
they were going to evacuate. the
Oh, they
city.
asked you if you wanted to evacuate them. They didn't take them.
But how did they ask you? I mean, did they send home a notice, or?
Well, I suppose they did somehow. I suppose they sent notes home, but they didn't take them without asking, without the parents' consent.
Mm.
And then eventually I went, it got bad up here, I think the place was bombed, wasn't it? And Dad went to work at Norwich and the boys were in Swinford, a little village near Rugby, and I went down there for a few weeks and I stayed down there with them
But they
for
were,
quite a while.
Actually, you stayed
they
in
were,
Lutterworth.
Eh?
You were in Lutterworth.
Went Lutterworth
Yeah.
first, then
went to Swinford.
we went to Swinford to Mrs. Hornsby. But while we were down there, Dick sat for the scholarship in Swinford Village School, didn't he? And he won it.
But,
I remember that one of the women come running in, she said, Mrs. Jones, your Dick's won the scholarship, so, because then I had to enter him for a school up here, and we entered him for Ask up the top here. And he went there when we came home.
yeah, but the
Well,
children,
you went down to Devon with them.
Oh, he went to Teignmouth.
Timothy,
Yeah.
The school was at Teignmouth, we entered him for them, and he went there, and David stayed with me.
Did they write you letters when they were away?
Oh, yes.
And you,
Because you were too young, David was too young to write at first, right?
yeah, David
I
was.
failed my 11 plus.
But,
we know.
they're like,
I was a failure.
Well, you didn't have a lot of schooling.
He didn't have a chance.
well, David was only 5.
Dick had the previous schooling, grounding, you didn't. You hadn't long started school, so
Yeah, I feel better now.
you had no grounding.
But, the evacuation was soon after the war started.
Yeah,
Before,
before the war started.
September the 3rd.
Declared.
Oh, yes.
And then they had
Well,
this,
not before the invasion of Poland, but before England.
Before England officially declared war.
Right.
Yeah.
then they had this, for about a year, they had this period, what was known as the phony war.
Oh, yes,
Nothing-
a long period with
When
nothing
nothing much
happened.
happened, and then during that period of the phony war, a lot of evacuees drifted back to London.
They came back, yes.
And the sort of real, as far as
As
London
soon
is
as they all
concerned, the
got
real,
back, the raids started.
yeah, they started like in the end of 1940.
Because the first one was sudden. We had no warning or anything.
Had you come back then? Or were you still evacuated?
Well, no, David, they went to Brighton first,
Oh, yes, you went to Brighton, didn't you, you and
then
me?
we came home,
At first, and came back from there because it was on the coast.
and then you came back home from Brighton, and you stayed here for a time,
And then the raid started.
and, I remember we had a raid, we had a warning one evening, and I know you Dick and David got underneath the bed. We had the bed down in the front room here, didn't we?
I think so, yeah.
One bed, and,
Yeah, we had an Anderson shelter out
Was
in the
that-
garden there, where that shed is.
was that when the, Doodlebug started, or before?
Doodlebug started after the raids.
What's Doodlebug?
Well, they used to
That was
come
a
over,
flying bomb.
Oh,
they used to come over unexpected. All of a sudden they used to come and then they used to, the engine used to stop and they used to come down.
but, so if you were already here, the bombing had already
A
started.
plane without a pilot. They're called
I see.
Doodlebugs, you see.
It was the B1.
And they used to fly so
There you
far and when their engine stopped they used to drop.
You see, they used to,
Flying bomb.
I don't know how they
They used to fire them from some sort of a gun affair, I think. but-
I know used to have a flare at the back, as though it was on fire.
Yes, you could see the
Because-
flame at the back.
That's it, that's when
We used to
there's,
stand and watch them.
when the first one, well, when the first one fell in this area, we never knew what it was all about. I know David and Dick's home then, and we're sleeping up in what is now the bathroom, Mum and I, and I think Dick and David were down here. And all of a sudden, the Crystal Palace alarm went. And ours went then, as soon as ours went,
We
there was a
we
big,
never knew what they were, did we?
there was a big crash.
We thought it was a plane came down.
It was a big crash, you see, and all our glass was out in the front. And of course the door was blown right open. And I went out, and there's two women walking up this street. And I'll never forget what they said. They said, "Good," they said, "we just fetched one down. We just fetched one down," they said. I said, "Good." Because it looked like as though it was on fire.
There was a plane that had been shot down.
Yes, you see, it's a bomb with a flare coming from out the back.
No,
Which is sort of easy with
The
it.
engine had stopped.
Then
That's the idea of it. And they just
Yes.
dropped where they.
Mum and David and Dick and Harry had got down the shelter. We used to have
He
a Anderson
didn't
shelter
see
there.
to say nothing.
And my cousin Pat were here. Because I remember my cousin Pat and we had two sailors' hats that used to run
Oh,
about.
yes, she used to wear it.
You used to have a white, the summer sailor's hat and the white one and black one. We used to wear those in the air raids.
Used to wear them in the shelter, didn't you?
And this was after you moved to this house, so they
Yeah.
had been,
Mm.
the other house had already been bombed.
Yes. And see, and when, of course, when these women said we just brought one down, they're all down the shelter, and I come back to get down the shelter, and I saw, as I thought, another plane going over on fire. Instead of that, this was another doodlebug. And I looked up, and of course, down there, and bang, I couldn't get down that shelter quick enough, could I?
What kind of shelter is an Anderson shelter?
Well, it's corrugated
Corrugated iron,
with
half in the ground, half it was.
like an arch shape, you see, like that. And it's got, we've even got a bar out there, one of the ace bars, what you screwed on, you had a frame, an iron frame, shape of an L, you see,
Mm-hmm.
and they were locked together. And then this corrugated was bolted to the bottom and the top.
So you dug a hole in the ground,
Yeah,
and then this corrugated arch structure was sort of
You had
put
to
there.
climb in
So you
it.
go down the stairs to the
down.
ground, and then you had to cover the corrugation with earth, with a minimum of 3 feet of earth, and people used to grow their tomatoes on that.
yeah.
And how did you dig the holes for them and
They
everything?
came and did that for you.
Oh,
Yeah, I think they did. I think they did.
did it.
Yeah, they
And
used to
how-
fix them for you, that's right.
The government.
Because Harry grew rhubarb on ours. Yeah.
That's great.
He had five
Use this
roots of
You had to
rhubarb.
spend double to get in them. They were awkward.
And how did you get it in the first
had-
place?
we
Did the
put
government
one-
supply
Oh,
it?
well,
We put some beds in them.
they were invented by, who invented those now?
Well, he was called-
Anderson, that's
he was
because
called
they
that.
were Anderson shelters.
But I mean, did you have to go buy them, or did the
No, no,
government
no,
supply
they
them?
supplied.
They supplied to.
The government.
Before we had though, we used to go down the public shelters.
And when did David and Dick go into the bed? When was that?
That was when the first doodle blood dropped.
Oh, we sent them off after that.
And then,
Do you remember? Did you hear it?
No, I think my brother was in Devon.
I think Dick was in too.
What, that time was it?
I think he was. I think Dick was in them.
Yeah.
Because Uncle Bob, my sister's husband, they had one, and he used to be his own contractor, transport contractor, and he used to did some work for the asphalt people. And he got some he's supposed to take back to the factory, or wherever it was. Anyway, he fetched one of the big boilers home and some blocks of asphalt. He melted all the asphalt down and he lined all these with asphalt inside, stopping the water coming in.
Oh, he built his own, didn't he? Made it sound. The water used to get in them, and you have to.
Well, did if you was unlucky.
If you didn't build them up properly.
Mm.
They weren't both getting in. It was cold too.
And then, of course, the other was, after that we got the, what they call the others now, the second lot.
Oh,
Morrison.
Morrison.
No, I mean the bomb.
Shelters.
Oh, but there was the V2.
V2.
Oh, the V2s, yes.
They couldn't stop the V2.
They couldn't stop those.
The V1,
They were like
they used to travel about the same speed,
Through an arrow.
about 360 miles an hour, which was the same speed as the Spitfire could fly. So they had a chance of shooting those down.
These
But the
V2s, they just
V2
used to
would
whiz it.
fly at about 1,500 miles an hour, so they were unstoppable. So there was absolutely nothing they could do to defend against the
So
V2.
they had to shoot them across the coast.
And
They were on the French
And
coast.
the fortunate thing about it was Germans didn't get them until the end of the war. So they were able to take the bases in France.
Well,
Otherwise, they would have just been over there and they were sent them over and no one could have done anything about them.
well,
The
they
Germans sent them over, showed
they had
them
the
over to France.
scientists, didn't they, the Germans, because they got everything out first.
Mm-hmm.
The Germans, they had the scientists,
They dropped one.
more so than we did.
They dropped one on Woolworths in New Cross on a Saturday.
Oh, yeah,
I read about that.
Did
got
you?
killed there.
When the war first began and they were getting, well, just before it began, when they evacuated the children, did they, did they tell you it would be such and such a day, and did you have any idea where the kids would go or anything?
I'm not
I
sure.
don't think we did actually.
No, I'm not sure about that, but because you had to get the children ready, packed up and all, what they were taking with them. We knew about when they were leaving, you see.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Well,
we
I'm not
were
sure.
told from the town hall or somewhere, we were told when to get them ready if we wanted them to go.
But I'm not sure
And
when
what to pack for them, you know.
Yeah, you couldn't just
Type
send as
of
much,
clothes to pack for them.
you had to send certain things
Yeah.
with
And
them.
we took them up to the station and the teachers collected them from
I'm not sure
at the
if we
station.
knew.
We took them to the station.
So they went like as classes, or,
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
like with David,
was,
David with his brother or with his
Oh,
sister?
yes, they went,
They
yeah.
went together.
They went together, yeah.
It was Lily that came with me. Oh, she always used to talk about
Yeah,
oh,
they were
she
both
said,
going to the,
she said, I never forget them with their packs on their backs.
see, they were going,
Was
both
that
going to the same school then,
Their
weren't
pack
they?
on their back.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they were going to Waller Road, both of them.
And
That's in the turning by the fire station.
But brothers and sisters wouldn't necessarily go to the same town.
I guess unless they were going to the same school. And was this like September 3rd that they
Yeah.
sent
Soon
them?
after, but I think they must have gone about September the 5th.
They went soon after
Very shortly, yes.
war was declared.
Right by your birthday.
Yeah, you were just
Yeah.
David says you didn't celebrate birthdays much. What kind of?
Well, not then. You were way more or less, weren't you?
Well, that's my excuse.
Look, we never had celebrated birthdays a lot, really, any of us.
Is that a family thing, or, I mean, David says in England people don't celebrate birthdays.
No, some do.
No,
Some do.
some families do, but we
What
never
about
did.
it?
We never had parties or anything. I don't think either of you had a 21st.
No, that's right.
I don't think. No, I don't think.
21st
Well,
birthday of
David
your
wasn't here surely when he was 21. He must have been
So
in
they
David
put it in the
Africa.
paper.
No, I didn't go to Africa till I was 25.
Didn't you?
Mm,
No, 25.
but I don't think either of you had a 21st birthday party.
I never know.
No, okay.
I think we bought you watches or something. We bought you something a bit different.
a larger gift.
Hmm.
Then parties died out really when we were young. We were courting.
Uh-huh.
When we were courting, we used to always have parties, didn't we? At
Well,
Mum's
one of the
place.
families at your place, yes. And then
At my mum's place, we were always
When,
having
Oh,
parties.
really?
when
Yes,
Lil-
and,
when Lil lived up the heath, they had a big flat up there, and we all used to meet up there at Christmas, didn't we?
yeah,
The two families,
and because
Dick's family and mine.
we say right, we'll only have a small party this time, about 60 a turn on.
Oh, wow.
the relatives had turned
on the island there.
And
Oh, oh yes,
And was there dancing or
Dancing, singing, my old grandfather, we used to have the old fashioned
we used to get old Granny on, and she used to sing. What did she
Yeah.
used to sing, Granny?
cock-a-doodle-oo or something.
Cock-a-doodle-oo.
Some
Something
sausage song, it was a sausage song, you know, but I can't think what it was. But, old grandfather
The
skills,
cheeky song, anyway, she used to sing.
old grandfather skills, he used to, in his young days, evidently, he was a great drinker. He used to drink a lot. And he was in business and he'd go broke, you know. And he used to be helped by one of the salesmen in Spitalfields Market, the name of Bruce. He used to always, you know, because they used to get on well and he used to buy a lot of stuff from this salesman. And he used to always finance him, you know, he used to get in trouble, bankrupt and that. And eventually he gave up drinking altogether and gambling. He wouldn't have a pack of cards in the house. And because he didn't want the old grandmother to drink, but she used to like her drink. And she used to have a
Oh, we
party
used to
drink.
take it out so it didn't in the...
And she used to say, go and get me half a pint of stout.
We used to get it in a jug then, take
Yeah,
it.
and we used to fetch it back quietly, you know, out the way so she could have a
She'd
half
go
a
in,
pint of...
she'd go in another room and have a drink, have a drink
And,
stout.
What was I going to say? Anyway, that's what it started. What was I going to say now? Oh, and then
That's all right, David.
we had a party one night. And we got the old-fashioned big old
Oh, that gramophone with the
gramophone records, you know, the old-fashioned ones. And because we left Grandfather Skills in charge of the gramophone,
Oh,
and he played one record all night. Paddling,
Madeline,
home.
Madeline home.
All night, that's all we had. One record.
You keep putting the needle back because we were dancing, nobody took the notice of it, Madeline, Madeline
Paddling,
home.
home, yeah.
Didn't you have other records or?
Yeah, we had plenty, yes, but that's all he played.
I don't think he knew how to change it.
Used to have some good times then. Believe me.
Did many people have a gramophone record?
Oh, yes, at that time, yeah.
Well, that's all,
I
that's,
think that,
well,
well,
that's all
that's
we
what
could
you
have,
had.
you had nothing else.
You never had any
We had-
television.
We
No
had a
radio.
piano here,
No, radio was only just starting.
and I
You
sold
get
it for
the,
£5.
you know, what did they call
Oh,
the
really?
first ones now? Well, what did they call those first radios now?
Crystal sets?
Crystal sets.
Yes,
Started with the
we used to
crystal
put the crystal sets on your ears.
We're going to go to Bill's soon.
Yes.
At least go to Bill's pretty soon.
Yes. You're going to be over there, have you, Rich?
Yeah. Well, get it around.
So you're not going to watch the fight?
What time?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you will, you see. Now,
That's at 20 to 10, David, the
That
fight.
was fun.
I know.
The fight's at 20 to 10.
yeah.
What time did you say we'd be there?
I said around about 7-ish.
Oh.
Oh, you left the rush then?
No, I'm going to recall, so it'll be a bit late.
Yeah.
So, because we're going to get ready. And I said, we takes about 25 minutes.
Oh, that's not bad.
Not far, less than that maybe.
It's a dreary evening.
But easy like this. No, it's lovely. Sky up there.
Seems dreary.
Well, next time we'll get Aunt Edie and
Yes, well, we
Uncle
could have
Dave
rang
and
them up.
Aunt
I
Mary.
should have rung her.
Because Mum said that she'd ring Arthur.
I told Arthur I would ring him. I called him in the week and told him what we were doing. And I said, he said, well, give me a call.
Oh, the longest when you come on.
Yeah.
You can leave your video equipment here.
Oh.
Okay.
We could be free of it.